we've been very fortunate. And once again, there are some important elements to having the success with the young team that we have. We have incredible people. We've nurtured those people. We've incubated those people. We've poured into those people.
Welcome to the MegaTeam Mastermind Podcast. I'm your host, John Tiller. In each episode, we have dynamic conversations with industry powerhouses, MegaTeam leaders, coaches, and other thought leaders who are shaping the future of real estate teams. This podcast is brought to you by MegaTeamMentor.com, where you can get a free, detailed assessment of your real estate team's health, including a free customized scorecard that will quickly and objectively diagnose the strengths and weaknesses of your real estate team business. Now, let's get started on the journey of growth, impact, and legacy building with today's episode. Welcome back to the MegaTeam Mastermind Podcast, where we interview successful real estate MegaTeam leaders who will inspire you by sharing real-world stories of success and failure, building profitable real estate teams that make an impact and leave a legacy. I'm your host, John Tiller, and today we have a guest who I've been waiting for some time, been excited to get him on the show. It is Ryan Young from Ohio, founder of the Young Team at Keller Williams, the #1 real estate team in Ohio, doing about 500 sales. We call them family served. And per year, Ryan's been doing this for 14 years. He's got what's really interesting that we're going to get into a little bit later also is that he is doing that kind of volume with just 15 agents and an average price point of $400,000 per sale. Man, Ryan, you and I met doing some different masterminds, CEO masterminds, marketing masterminds. I have run in some of the same circles for some of the same years over the years. And man, I'm just super excited to have you on the show.
Yeah, this is going to be a blast. And you know what? I love what you said. And I don't think I picked up on this before, but you said mega teams that are profitable. And I think that is something, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but I think that's something that's maybe overlooked in the day and age of people on stages and who are behind microphones. Is there's not a lot of accountability or visibility around profitability. And it's cool that is a part of the pillar of the way you're even introing the show.
So true, man. And we'll definitely dig into some of that now. But give us first a background. Tell us about Ryan. Tell us about how you got where you are and a little bit about your story and key parts along the way of your journey.
Yeah, I'll fast forward to when I got into real estate. 2010, not the best time to get into real estate, but I did it anyways. I don't think I realized it was a bad time to get into the real estate industry. My folks were realtors, so they had a small team. It was the two of them. They were selling 40 homes a year, a nice little business, but they really were impacted by like the market crashing in 2009. And I moved back to Cleveland, Ohio. That's where I grew up, where they were. And I got my license. And next thing, 11, 12, 13, we started to grow. It was me and the two of them. And then we started to add a couple of different team members. And it was 13 and 14. And next we're maybe a team of 7. And then we started to see growth. And I would say once I hit about 2015, was where I got to a point where maybe selling 100 homes a year, which at the time seemed like a lot. But I started surrounding myself with groups of people that you and other people that we know, where I started seeing, wow, this person's selling 800 homes and this person's selling 400 and this person's selling 1,200. And I was like, I don't want to limit myself to what I would consider as being a big team in a very small pond, you know? And so I got the appetite. I'm like, I got to get in these circles. And I started coaching with coaches that were coaching those type of teams. And I started investing into things like radio and television and a little bit making larger investments into our marketing campaigns. And we started to see the team scale pretty quickly. Geographically, most importantly, is when we first started, we just serviced our little suburb, and then it kind of the suburb and the suburb next to it. Well, then once you started getting onto radio and some of these larger campaigns, you're getting calls an hour away, right? And all of a sudden we realized we need to expand our agent count, because I don't want to drive an hour away, but it's like there's great agents out there and we're pulling opportunities. And then it started to see us scale. And before you know it, it was 2019 or so. And we were selling 500 homes a year, and we've been sitting there for a while. And what's really cool is I've always had an appetite, just by surrounding myself with other entrepreneurs. While building the real estate business has been a lot of fun, in 2019, I started to do I was always doing the guaranteed sale program, which then turned into a cash offer program. Then I started buying homes. And next thing you know, I started a company called Flash House, was an acquisition platform where we were buying about 15 to 20 homes a month in Northeast Ohio. This was in like 2021. And then we started to see all these cash offer requests were coming in, but we weren't able to buy them because they thought the number was too low. And then we were referring them to our real estate team. And so I started to see another opportunity of like a lead gen mechanism around this. And then in 2022, we started a company called Fello, which a database engagement platform really focused on seller conversion. And now I look back and it's like a lot happened over the past 15 years, even just talking it out. We've got our great real estate team that I love that's doing its thing. I've got a great software company in Fello. I've kind of stepped back from the acquisition side of things, but I still own a bunch of real estate. And I'm excited. I'm curious what the next 15 looks like.
Man, that's awesome. There's a lot there to unpack for sure. Be specific for us a little bit on your current business details. So you're spending most of your time, it sounds like, between the young team and Fello. Tell us about at the young team. Tell us about your position there, your role there. Are you there every day? Are you CEO? Do you have an integrator or a president that's kind of an operations manager? Tell us about the structure there and what your role is.
Yeah. So I would say my week is probably 10 to 15% young team, 85 to 90% Fello.
Awesome.
What's interesting is the young team and what we have is really special because we don't really have true structure from like an integrator, visionary integrator type of perspective. What we do have is incredibly loyal team members that have become leaders within the organization and that act as if the team is their own, right? And so we kind of lead by committee. The majority of the leaders on our team have been on the team over 6-7 years. They're top producers, top management, operational side. But it's just really interesting that 15 agents selling 500 homes a year with somewhat of, I would say, self-managed and self-disciplined kind of mindset. It's just interesting that we continue to organically continue to push through even challenging markets and still be one of the leaders in our industry. I probably, if I was going to do it all over again and I knew I was going to start another company and that company was going to absorb a lot of my time, I probably would have foundationally built it a little differently. I probably would have had someone else in charge. I probably would have had maybe an integrator that's facilitating or executing a little bit more. But we're just at a place where it's almost comfortable. And I know being comfortable is dangerous, but it just kind of works for us. So it's like great team members. We're super competitive, but also in a collaborative kind of way. We have an incredible culture, and we've seen year over year, all of our team members' income continue to grow, opportunities continue to grow. And I think because of that, we've had a loyal following, and it continues to allow us to do what we do.
Again, so much to unpack there. That is as you know, that's somewhat of a unicorn, not completely. Everybody
100%.
thinks that they want this perfect culture. We're going to sell 500 homes a year with 15 team members. Most team leaders who try to do that, they hire their 15 team members, maybe 20, and they're like, we're nowhere near the production level we need to get. So what would you say is like the secret sauce that made that combination work for you, where you could have a small group of like-minded, high-producing agents? What would you say was the secret sauce there?
I wouldn't be giving enough credit. My brother Josh is a leader on the team that does a significant amount without a title, right? So it's like, it wouldn't be fair to not acknowledge, and a couple other leaders that we have that do a lot more than what their job title requires them to do. But if I were to have to like say what really differentiates us, or kind of like the reason why we're seeing that type of productivity is, it's hard to articulate, but there is a standard within our team that is so elevated that you just naturally bounce yourself out of the team if you don't adhere or meet that standard, right? And what we found is that's just become the exception. So it's like when the average agent's selling 40 homes a year and all of a sudden you bring in a new agent and in the first 12 months they sell 2 homes, a lot of times they just become uncomfortable. And so they end up leaving, and that's okay. Like what we found is that the agent that every week when they're at the bottom of the leaderboard, when we're going over numbers and accountability, that either is going to do one of two things. It's going to fuel that inner competition or that competitive side of them to start climbing up, or it's going to push them away. And we like having that type of pressure and that type of expectations to do one or the other. Like, it is okay if it breaks. We are comfortable losing team members if they don't meet the minimum standards and ultimately what we would consider as kind of the expectations of our team members. And I think that has just somewhat organically, I don't want to say intentionally, but like organically just become who we are and what our culture is. And if a team member is not living up to those expectations, they become very uncomfortable within our organization because there's such a standard to playing the game at that high of a level.
That's a consistent message that you and I both hear as we get coached and we coach others and we mastermind with other teams. Is it's all about the standards being part of the culture, right? And so you having that weekly accountability and creating this environment, some of it I think was from what you're describing seems like it was just kind of natural Ryan Young, kind of a humble implementer and someone who sets the standards. You lead by example. I know I've seen that as I've watched you lead your team. Now, you said that I want to talk about the things you said that you might do different if you started over. What is the downside? What's the risk to you of doing it the way you've done it instead of doing it the way you would do it if you started over?
Yeah, I think that, and I talked to my team about this, I think we have a little bit of exposure and we're slightly vulnerable the way we've currently structured it, where it's contingent upon our people and not essentially on a process, right? Now, there are some processes that have got us to where we are. I don't want to downplay what we've done. You can't just like unintentionally organically sell 500 homes year over year. It's like, just when I say process, but when I look at the growth, we are somewhat unintentional about our growth. Like we have no accountability or expectations to recruiting, right? We recruit people organically, and by recruiting meaning they come to us and we push away probably 80% of those people just because we don't think they'd be a good fit. So it's like we almost limit ourselves into what our opportunity is because we don't have those muscles built. And I think when I say I would probably do things differently is if I had the energy and I was fully invested into the young team's growth from a unit count, from an agent count perspective, I would have some processes in place that are looking strictly at what is our current agent count? What are we looking to net by the end of the year? What is our expectations of growth for those agents? We've just played it somewhat organically to say, we know that our team members want to continue to grow, but there's very little accountability to their growth. There's accountability to them creating awareness around what they're doing in their business and helping them grow. But it's just an interesting model where it's versus my other company versus Fello is so process driven. Everything is so strategic and calculated. With that, there's a little bit more comfort level when you have the ability to forecast based off of data. But I don't have that with the young team yet. We've been very fortunate. And once again, there are some important elements to having the success with the young team that we have. We have incredible people. We've nurtured those people. We've incubated those people. We've poured into those people. We love on those people. We show them growth and opportunity. So while I'm making it sound like it's almost like the growth of the young team has been an accident, there's still a lot of things that we've done to get the most out of the team members that we currently have.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And one of the things I've heard you say recently, Ryan, is that and again, feel free to correct me where I'm wrong here, but you said something, I believe it was on a social media post, that you said you just feel like you're in the place you're supposed to be in because the young team, by your evaluation that you just gave, maybe it's not the most bulletproof business. It's a lot of fun. It's certainly profitable. It's a big deal to have people that you're doing something that matters with. It's not the kind of systems driven business that Fello is. And you're able to do both. And without the young team, you wouldn't have been able to create Fello. And so tell us a little bit about the birth of Fello from the perspective. You said you were buying houses with Flash House. You had some software associated with that, but it was really buying, and you kind of made this pivot to Fello. So what made you move from Flash House. Maybe describe a little bit also about what that was.
Yep.
And to this new software, Fello, which
Yep.
has been massively successful. You would never say that. I will say it as a user of Fello. It's just a critical piece of our team business and many teams that I know and agents that I know. And you've scaled this thing pretty fast. So what made you tell us a little bit about both and what made you pivot from one software type to this other?
Yeah. So the progression was when we were doing the guaranteed sale, I finally had someone that actually was just like, buy my house. And I was like, I can't buy your house. Like, that's not the way the program works. It's if I can't sell it, I'll buy it guaranteed. And he's like, what number would you buy it at? And I threw him a number that I thought he would just be like, there's no chance. He was like, I'll take it. And I'm like, well, why would you take it? And he's like, well, because I really need to sell this house. I have a ton of equity and it doesn't make financial sense for me to actually list. It would cost me more money to list this property for the time it would take to get it ready than for me to just accept this offer. So I'm actually winning. Right. And I was like, interesting. We are so conditioned to think that every seller wants to net the most amount of money. Well, every seller wants to net the most amount of money. Then that might not always be their highest priority. Right.
Right. That's right.
And so all of a sudden I was like, well, let's start this cash offer program instead of the guaranteed sale. And so we launched the Young Team Cash Offer program, which started to create a lot of traction. But then sellers were getting pissed because we as the Young Team were saying, John, I'd recommend you list your house for 300,000 and the cash offer is 200,000. And they're like, well, how could you tell me my home's worth 300 and then you're willing to offer me 200? Like, we don't want to work with you.
Right.
And so we're like, oh man, this is becoming detrimental to actual listing conversion because it's creating confusion and stuff like that. And it's potentially a bad representation of what we feel it's worth or why we're willing to offer what we did. So I said, you know what? I want to insulate myself from this cash offer, the Young Team Cash Offer. And so I started Flash House, where it was disclosed that I had ownership in Flash House, but it wasn't like represented like the Young Team Cash Offer. And so our listing team would go on the appointment and they would say, John, I'd recommend we list your house at 300 and Flash House is willing to offer you 200,000. And they'd be like, that number's way too low. And they might say like, well, let me go back to the guys over at Flash House and see what we can do. See if we can get that number up. Just went back to them. Nothing we can do. Let's just go ahead and list your home at 300,000. And so what we found was that like Flash House was a very nice way to insulate ourselves. And then we started having success buying some of these homes. And what we said was, wait, we're making on some of these houses more money buying them than we are from a listing commission. Let's start actually marketing to people to buy their homes. Like, let's just go direct to consumer with Flash House. It's its own company. It has its own website. It's completely legitimate. We had tons of cash we were sitting on from a debt perspective that we could use to acquire homes. And so next thing we started ramping that up and we were acquiring, like I said, kind of 15 to 20 homes a month going direct to consumer. And we were doing postcards and mailings and all kinds of stuff, paid ads, et cetera. Well, where the light bulb went off was I started to see Young Team contacts in our database requesting offers from Flash House. Now they had no idea that I own Flash House. They got to Flash House not through the Young Team. And I started realizing that our database was in jeopardy because here is another company that is quote unquote stealing opportunities from us because they're going directly to that company. Right. And that's where that next kind of iteration was like, wait a minute, we're losing so many of our opportunities to Flash House. We're not even in a market with some of the big iBuyers at the time. This was Open Door, Zillow Offers, OfferPad, et cetera, Redfin Now. What do you think agents are doing in those markets where Open Door has billboards every 30 seconds and OfferPad has radio ads? It's like we're casually marketing the cash offer message through Flash House. They are aggressively marketing it. And agents are somewhat of maybe an existential threat is extreme or dramatic, but in 2019, they were so aggressively trying to scale these companies that there was a lot of chats on social media about, I just lost another one to Open Door. I just lost another one to whoever it was. And so this was the concept of like, wait, how do we actually create engagement within the agent's database to get them to get the seller to raise their hand so that the agent can take them to the iBuyer instead of the consumer going directly to the iBuyer themselves? And it was this whole it's just crazy, like this entire evolution of like we were trying to insulate ourselves on the cash offers. And then we started seeing our own people requesting cash offers from us. And then it was just one of those things. Like, you look back over the last 5 years, like, we've only been a software platform for 2, right? It's like, but this was a lot of experience over the last 5 years that we learned as we kept building these different businesses and observing pain points in them and trying to solve those pain points. And then we realized that there was a bigger business to be had.
That's an amazing story, man. It's super incredible. So tell me about, so as you've pivoted and you've created these different businesses, tell me about what you feel like you have dialed in as Ryan Young's superpower.
I say this all the time. My biggest strength is knowing my weaknesses. And I am really comfortable surrounding myself with people way smarter than me, people that do things that I am not good at. At Fello, we have about 100 employees and I don't have a single direct report, and it's like, I'm not a great manager of people. I'm a vision guy. I'm a strategy guy, a go-to-market guy. I spend a lot of time in the product. I look at pain points. I solve those pain points. Sometimes it's hard for people in positions that I'm in to say, I don't want people not to report to me, but I just know that there are other people in our organization that can do a better job where we can go further as a company where I would slow us down. And so I'm just very comfortable knowing my weaknesses, accepting those weaknesses, and surrounding myself with people that are stronger than I am with my weaknesses.
So I love that. Along with that, with that great attitude comes the realization at some point in your career, I'm sure, that like you knew 10 years ago, 14 years ago, you knew what some of your weaknesses were, right? If it's fair to say that you've discovered some weaknesses over the last 14 years, has there been a time where you didn't think you were weak in an area, but you figured out that you were? And how did that work? Like, how did you discover that you were not great in that area? Was it somebody else that had to say, Ryan, hey, wait a minute, man, time out. Like, this is not there's a problem here, and the problem is problems.
I've self-discovered by not someone telling me the problem is me, by creating disappointment. And I hate to disappoint. And when I know that I underdeliver, when I overpromise, right, I always end up seeing the disappointment that it creates or the frustration that it creates. And that makes me feel worse about it, that I didn't just do what I was supposed to do, right? And so I think what I found is that I attach the emotional side of, if I'm doing something that I'm not the best at or that I'm not great at, and I know there's other people that can do it better than I can, it's selfish of me, because what I'm doing is I'm disappointing people and I'm under delivering. And it's just one of those things that I think I've seen it enough where, and it occasionally it happens, right? But that's just the reminder of, I hate disappointing people. And I would rather delegate those responsibilities to someone that I know will do a much better job where people wouldn't be disappointed.
That makes perfect sense. So we are recording right now. I'm going to ask you about a time-sensitive issue. So I'm going to talk about, we're recording right now here in kind of mid-July 2024, and there's something that at least seems really big for us on the horizon that's coming up related to the NAR settlement issue of the lawsuits. And we don't need to get into a whole lot of specifics, because honestly, by the time that we release and then the time that somebody listens to this, it might be different. But tell me about what you're doing to prepare leaders. It's our job to forecast the future, right? So what are you doing to prepare? What are you telling your agents, your clients, your companies, your leaders about how this all could affect the industry and your business, and what to do about that?
Yeah. So I'll start first with the young team. The young team, I will say, we are a little bit in a better position, the way we've structured our organization, for some of the changes that are happening in the industry. And what I mean by that is, first off, we've been 60+% listings for the past 5, 7, 8 year, whatever it's been. So our business is not contingent upon the buy side, right? We make the majority of our profit on our listings. We help our agents scale their businesses through listings. So it's one of those things that it's like we still are addressing it, but we've always been positioned. And because I always say a listing or a seller is more transactional and a buyer is more relational,
Yes.
because we've done so well scaling our business through listings, we've always done well working with buyers and getting buyer representation agreements signed. So if I looked at our numbers right now, we have over 200 buyer representation agreements signed this year. So like that practice is not foreign to our team, right? Now, there's some nuances in the practice that we've been working on and we've been strategizing around. The thing that I'm most excited about that we've been working with the team on the buy side is we've always sat down and approached buyer representation as we are going to make a commitment to you. We want you to make a commitment to us. Now we are approaching buyer representation as not only are we making a commitment to you, but here is the value we are providing. And basically we are basically approaching it like we're on a listing appointment, like we're competing against other agents. So we built out this entire, what I would consider is like defense for why we are the best person to work with on the buy side, which we never used to do. We did on the sell side. And this includes success stories from buyers that won in multiples or success stories of buyers that have negotiated down their purchase price in the past 12 months. This includes success stories of us finding off-market homes for our buyers and showing them and giving them examples and testimonials from buyers that would have never gotten their home if they didn't work with the young team. Articulating the value of the operational side of our business, which includes all the coordination stuff that we do. And what we're excited about is sitting down with that buyer and saying, do you feel like working with the young team gives you a competitive advantage in this market? And getting them to commit to saying yes to that. Then it's just a matter of how much do they value that competitive advantage, right? And so we're really working through, like, is that worth 1%? Is that worth 3%? Is that worth 2%? What is that worth to you? And we keep working through and tightening to say, well, everything that I'm willing to offer you, how much is that worth? And how do we quantify the value that we provide? And if you can't quantify it, you're going to struggle, right? Yep. If I were to ask a buyer, could you see the value of working with the young team? And they say, sure. And I say, well, great. How much is that worth to you? And they say, well, it's not really worth much because I know another agent that would do exactly what you do for less. Well, then you're not articulating or differentiating yourself. And so what I'm really excited about is we've been doing this on the sell side for a long time, and we've been working by buyer representation for a long time. Now we're just coming in and fine tuning and tweaking. And it's actually like really, I would say, fun to get back in and to challenge ourselves because we've gotten a little bit in this kind of autopilot mindset. And it's interesting to see the way the team's rallying around it. We actually look at it as an opportunity to increase our average buyer commission. What's interesting is our average listing commission on the young team for the past 3 years has been between 3.25 and 3.35%.
Love it.
On the buy side, it's been between 2.25 and 2.35%. So we've seen a significant amount of commission compression on the buy side, and we've never really had the mechanism to ask the seller for additional commission. And we never set ourselves up with the buyer because there was none of this financial conversation to make up the difference. We're excited, and we look at this as an opportunity to say, now we're just going to disclose what our worth is. And we're hoping that the buyer will commit to that, whatever the investment is, whether it's coming from the seller, coming from the buyer, or coming from a little bit of both. But now we at least know what we're working for. And I think the team's really excited about that. On the Fello side, what we're basically doing is, obviously the message Fello, for everyone listening, is really focused on seller conversion. And we were kind of first to market. We launched it about 2 years ago, and we realized there's a massive opportunity to help agents start generating more listings, especially out of their database. So from a Fello standpoint, it's always been the same message of, there are homeowners in your database that are going to be listing their homes. How do we help them list with you? And we're doubling down on the importance of seller lead generation and listing conversion. But now we're also starting to build some mechanisms within Fello where we can provide value to the buyers that are potentially looking for homes by saying, we have a database full of homeowners. One of the differentiators between us and everyone else is we're going to get you access to those homeowners in our database, and we're going to see if we can find you some off-market properties. So we're starting to go deeper and build mechanisms that are going to empower buyer agents by leveraging the agents or the team's database of homeowners, which will be a value add for the team leader to say to the team member, a value for the team member to say to the potential buyer, and then a way to generate new listing opportunities, which is a value for everyone.
That's so cutting edge. So cutting edge. So there's a lot that you talked about. I'll start with the end and kind of return to the beginning there.
Sure.
The pivoting both on the software side. I actually didn't realize that you were making that upgrade to Fello, so that, because it makes perfect sense. That's the next logical conclusion, right? Is we have this database of sellers, what buyers want, probably arguably more than anything else, whether it's what the realtor thinks they should want or not. The thing that buyers want is they want the right property, and off-market properties gives you a competitive advantage that you literally other agents don't have, and most agents in our marketplace can't articulate. And that's the scary thing for the agent in this marketplace who can't articulate their value, right? And what I love is that you see it the way you see this potential challenge, this change in the industry. You see it the way that so many of us have seen changes, lots of changes historically in the industry, that people said, oh, realtors are going out of business. And we don't have time to talk about it right now, but there are reasons why you and I both believe that, and many others believe that this isn't the way of the travel agent. The real estate agent isn't the way of the travel agent. The real estate agent whose only value is opening the door is going to go the way of the travel agent, where that can be done at a very low cost. If not, that can be done that way. But the opportunity to articulate value and show value and actually provide value, some value that we're already providing, we're just as agents not great at talking about. And I love how you're
really
attacking
quick.
that.
It's why I've invested heavily into the luxury space over the last 2 years or so, because in the luxury space, it is the differentiations of A versus B that is who the seller chooses, and it's experiential, and it's like they're willing to pay for the experience, right? Like, and so we've just found, we stood up Young Luxury about 3 years ago, and I just saw there was an opportunity. Things were getting more automated, but what's not getting automated is the luxury bespoke experiences that people are still willing to pay a premium for, to have that like hand-holding concierge type of experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell me about what you're doing to generate the most business in what is a bit of an uncertain market right now. Tell me about the number one thing that the young team is doing to generate the most business.
Yeah, I mean, it's cliche. We're crushing our database. Like, we've got 45,000 contacts in our database. 35,000 of those are homeowners. Obviously, it's what I built Fello on, and Fello is the largest driver of our business. And it's just one of those things, like, we are just looking at our database as such opportunity. It's taken us a long time to build this big of a database, to incubate this big of a database, and it's really producing dividends. We look at our database as an asset, and our asset continues to provide passive opportunities if worked the right way. Now, we also actively and aggressively work it, but it's just one of those things. That's where all of our margin is. That's where all these listings we're listing 40 plus homes a month. And it's like the majority of them are coming from our database.
That makes perfect sense. I think as your database for MegaTeam leaders grows from 10 to 20 to 30 or 40,000 to, we have friends in the industry who have 100,000 and more in the database. It is a overwhelming prospect to individual agents and even team leaders to figure out how to mine that database. But just doing it, every one of our masterminds and coaches, they're all like you said, it's not sexy, it doesn't sound innovative. It's just getting back to making connections with the people that are there. And I love how you're leveraging technology to do that too. So around here, we talk a lot about impact and legacy. And I wanted to ask you, Ryan, what are you most proud of that your team is doing to make an impact in your local community?
I would say what I'm most proud of with my team is we've been doing this now for, I'd say, 20 plus years, and we're still liked by pretty much everyone in our market. And I think a lot of times the biggest fish has a target on their back, right? We work so hard to create and continue to nurture agent relationships, not only because it feels good, but our clients benefit, right? And it's just one of those things that it's like, it's such a small, like life is too short. And Northeast Ohio, Cleveland, where I'm at, it's like there's 15, 16,000 agents. So it's just, who wants to be constantly arguing with agents? And I hear so many other agents around the country that are like, yeah, I am hated by everyone in our market, or I hate this agent, or whatever it is. And I really am proud, if you talk to anyone in Northeast Ohio, there's probably a couple that, I don't know, don't like us, but I'm really proud that, like, despite our team we have a larger team for the area, all those team members are an extension of that vision of like, support each other, support the industry. Like, and I talk to other agents all the time and they're like, I'm doing a deal with this person on your team and they're amazing. And I'm like, that's awesome. That just makes me so happy that it's like, that is the vision that I always had, and they're all an extension of me. And you start to lose a little bit of that control the bigger you get. And the fact that we're able to preserve really what, my vision kind of was, and the way I approach real estate, it makes me really proud.
So it is possible to have a great, profitable business that actually is making a positive difference in both the agent community and your local
100%.
So
100%.
So good. Now, I also happen to know that you are a family man. Your family, your wife, you have one or two young kids?
Two kids,
Two
Winston
kids?
and Lola. Yep.
And how old are they?
Winston is 4, Lola's 3, so 16 months apart.
Wow, man, that's incredible. And how long have you been married?
We've been together 8 years, so it seems
That's
like
awesome.
I probably should have the little chart ready to go.
That's all good. That's all good. I have a friend and mentor who talks about how many of us are giving up or putting effort into what's valuable, our business, but it's costing us what's priceless, our family. And from my perspective, I see you navigating the integration of and balance of family and work. I see that's important to you. How do you create that work-life integration, and how do you make sure that your family is the winner out of this deal and not the loser?
Yeah, I think you got to separate my family to 3 different buckets: my wife, my kids, and my wife and my kids, right? And so I want to make sure that me and my wife, get to spend time together and enjoy each other's company. And I want to make sure that I get to spend enough time with my kids without my wife, where she can relax and I can get one-on-one time or 2-on-1 time with them. And then there's the time where all 4 of us get to spend together, which is really special. So it's one of those things that it's like, just kind of if you had to look at like this balance of like really making sure that you're checking off all those boxes, you got to be intentional when it comes to it. And there are times where I weave in and out depending on how busy we are. And I sometimes get reminded, which I appreciate. And sometimes I'm traveling for work and it's lonely or whatever it is. But I think we all work so hard. There is something so warm and rewarding about not working and actually just like spending time with people that don't really care about your work. And obviously they care about my work, but especially in my kids' eyes, it's like, to them, they just want to play. Right. And it's so fun. It's like I put my kids to bed every night, and to me, I so look forward to that. That's a win. And me and my wife, we cook dinner every night and we eat dinner. We don't sit in front of the TV. It's like, these are little wins throughout the day that I just really value.
I love so much about that, about the separate buckets, because at the end of the day, you've got your kids are 4 and 3. So you have about 14 more summers with them. And then it's you and your wife, right? And so she's going to be around longer than they are, right? And having that separate time and modeling for them what a good marriage looks like, and having those little times. It sounds like you've designated these high quality times. Whether or not you've got high quantity times or seasons of high quantity, it's the quality that matters, and you're being super intentional about that.
It's the quality that matters. And something that we've done is every Saturday, Sunday, my wife sleeps in. I take the kids for 3+ hours. So we bring her coffee in bed. She gets to hang out. She gets to read. She gets her time, right? And with me and the kids, like,
sure,
we're hanging out, we're doing our thing. And then, like I said, I have these just non-negotiables. I put them to bed every night. That's non-negotiable. I eat with my wife every night. That's a non-negotiable. Like, there's just these little things that I have found like that just make me happy. And when I don't do them, there are times where I deviate, and it's like, some people might look at it as repetitive or monotonous or redundant or whatever it is, or boring. But me, ironically, when I deviate, I feel I miss the routine. And so just really stay like adhering to those. And it makes me feel so much better.
So good, man. So good. So as we wrap up, one last question. We've got a lot of team leaders in a lot of different places in their of growth in their business across North America listening. What's the most important thing that team leaders right now need to know in today's market?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say that if right now, I talk about this a lot. I talk about predictability and I talk about like owning your business. And I think, in my opinion, some team leaders almost need to strip down some of the things they're doing to tighten up foundationally what their business is so that you start to have predictive control over your business. And I've seen so much variability and volatility that impacts, and I've observed some really strong foundational businesses that are just kind of pushing through all the volatility, but they have these really strong principles and they have this really strong foundation that I think if you don't have that, if you feel there's instability and you don't have predictability into the future of what your business looks like or what sales looks like next quarter, or if everything seems like it's a guessing game, I would almost say stop adding on more, start pushing away some, really get tight, like a really tight nucleus or foundation, and then start adding back on from there.
That's so good. There's so many of us are visionaries. That's what's gotten us to where we are. But visionaries tend to be easily distracted and we want to go do the next thing. And sometimes we just got to come back and look at the thing that we have and make sure that we're building a strong foundation there. That's great, Ryan. Dude, thank you so much, man. Appreciate you joining us on the show. Hey, where can people find you if they want to look you up after the show?
Yeah, social is always the easiest. Ryan on Instagram, it's Ryan Young Fello, Fello, or just shoot me a message on an email, ryan@highfellow.com. I'm sure we can put those up there. And I'd love to connect, whatever I can do to help you guys build your business, grow, scale. That's what I'm here for.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Well, Ryan, hey, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate your time investment and excited to see what's next with the young team and Fello. Thanks for being here. And that's a wrap on another episode of the MegaTeam Mastermind. I hope you found some nuggets of wisdom that you can use to leverage your real estate team to make an impact and to build a legacy. A huge thank you to our incredible guest and, of course, to our sponsor, MegaTeamMentor.com, where you can get a free detailed assessment of your real estate team's health, including a free customized scorecard that will quickly and objectively diagnose the strengths and weaknesses of your real estate team business. That's MegaTeamMentor.com for your free real estate team health assessment. If you enjoyed the show, I would consider it a personal favor if you would subscribe or leave us a review so that we can get this podcast out to others who want to make an impact and leave a legacy. I hope you'll tune in to our next episode for more leadership insights, strategies, and stories of success and failure. Until then, this is John Tiller, and as always, I'd like to speak an ancient blessing on you as we go. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face toward you and give you